Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to TEDxLewis Palmer High School. Now, this is a TEDx event, and the rules explicitly state that I am not allowed to be political. But it's not really political when I say, "Make America Great Again" is catchy, but also confusing. Think about it. The phrase "again" implies we're returning to some glorious past that I'm not sure actually exists. I mean, sure, I would look fantastic in a powdered wig, or make a pretty great Gatsby, but slavery was legal until 1860s. Women couldn't vote until 1920, and LGBTQ+ Americans couldn't get married until 2015. I'm not being political when I say MAGA distorts history. But let's be honest with ourselves. Campaign slogans are far from the only problem. We all love to romanticize a past that never truly existed. We all question the value of our modern world, and we all yearn for the simpler times of yesterday. But my concern is that our rather unique relationship with the past is starting to threaten our country's future. From people denying the existence of climate change, to laws restricting how LGBTQ+ issues are discussed in the classroom, historical negationism exists as the most pressing threat to the progress our country has made. According to the American Historical Association, historical negationism is when we distort, deny, or trivialize facts about the historical record. And increasingly, America's future is looking like regression to the past. So today, I am going to talk about history. Exciting, right? By first, identifying the causes of historical negationism. Second, analyzing the impacts it is having on our society. Before finally, proposing some solutions. Because I think we can all agree that our society needs to move forwards, not backwards. Now, my favorite childhood tale is the story of the first Thanksgiving. The brave pilgrims boarded the Mayflower and crossed the Atlantic in search of freedom. The Native Americans, while originally hesitant, welcomed their oppressors with open arms. They had a magnificent feast, sang Kumbaya, and lived happily ever after. Yeah, that didn't happen. But conveniently, the story of the first Thanksgiving illustrates two of the primary reasons we practice historical negationism. And the first is our innate desire for simplicity. I'm going to be real with you guys. The first Thanksgiving has more content than a 10-minute speech could ever cover. But as author Yuval Harari notes in his book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, humans think in stories, not numbers, facts, or equations. And the simpler the story, the better. And well, what is history if not one long story? But instead of carefully examining each event and figure, our mind turns back to that innate desire for simplicity. That's why most Americans have a more nuanced understanding of Star Wars than World War I. The second reason why we practice historical negationism is because history makes us feel uncomfortable. Mentioning how your great aunt protested integration or how your great uncle was a Nazi typically isn't a source of family pride, or at least I would sincerely hope it's not. But the unfortunate reality is that history is racist, sexist, homophobic, and imperialist. But instead of accepting the reality, as author Margaret Macmillan notes in her work, The Uses and Abuses of History, we choose the comforting historical myth over the uncomfortable historical reality. We put on our rose-tinted glasses, looking back at the past through a narrow lens that fits our worldview, ignoring the subjects that are either too personal or awkward to talk about. We practice historical negationism, and we should be concerned. Because inevitably, the lies we tell now will become the future we all live. In America, people still wave their Confederate flags with pride, ignoring how it is both a symbol of racism and hate. Our own president claims that January 6th, a day where our democracy was almost trampled on the Capitol steps, a day of love. An article in The Economist reports that nearly 1 out of every 5 Americans between the ages of 18 and 29 thinks that the Holocaust is a myth. A 2022 Pew Research study found that nearly 14% of Americans think that climate change is not real. And a recent Florida Department of Education decision, revised standards suggest that slavery may have been beneficial to African Americans. Historical negationism is dangerous, because if we repeat these lies enough, they will become the truth. And I'm not bringing all these facts to polarize or insult people. We need to have mutual understanding for each other. But these facts all elucidate an underlying issue. These problems need to be addressed, and that will never happen if we don't have honest conversations about history. For example, take the issue that I'm most passionate about, conservation and climate change. I have done so much work in the field, volunteering over 1,000 hours at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo and running all of their environmental education initiatives, working with USC and conducting climate policy research that I have applied on the national and local scale. I do all this work, yet sometimes I'm still met with apathy, where people don't care about the issues that I am so passionate about and outright deny the existence of climate change and endangerment of biodiversity. We're never going to address these problems if we can't talk about the history behind it accurately. It's heartbreaking to witness what historical negationism is doing throughout our country and world. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Well, the first step is that we can all acknowledge historical complexity. History isn't just some black and white picture. In fact, there's a variety of sources and perspectives that we need to carefully analyze. If we can handle the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we can handle historical truth. And the fact of the matter is, we need it if we're going to fight historical negationism in any meaningful way. The second thing we can all do to fight historical negationism is to embrace difficult conversations. Because, quite frankly, if history is being taught right, it should make us all feel uncomfortable. As feminist Gloria Steinem once put it, the truth will set you free, but first, it will piss you off. And as the organization Facing History notes, that by embracing historical complexity and having difficult conversations about historical past, we build shared empathy and understand how to fight oppressive structures. And finally, the thing that we can all do is to acknowledge our educators and support them. Because, quite frankly, the battlefield against historical negationism is the classroom. And throughout the United States right now, there is a renewed distrust in our public education system. I'm not saying whether that's valid or not. I'm just saying that we need to make sure the educators that are meaningful to us need to know that their work is changing lives. In fact, a study conducted by the American Education Research Association highlights how teachers that have tough conversations about history in the classroom have students that are more likely to be civically engaged and reject discriminatory policies. Teachers are changing lives, so we can all make sure they are getting the support they so desperately need. So, hopefully, I'm not being political, When I say I am confused about MAGA, I mean, sure, going on the Oregon Trail would be super cool until I get dysentery. I would probably get drafted in World War I, World War II, or Vietnam. And quite frankly, the Roaring 20s were probably not as cool as they seemed. I may joke, after all, I look like your favorite dorky history lecture, but historical negationism is truly no laughing matter. It's a problem our society needs to urgently address by acknowledging complexity, embracing difficult conversations, and supporting our educators. Because when we understand the past, we can build a future. So guys, let's talk about history. Thank you.